My name is Charles Rolph, and I'm going to be presenting about Abraham Bergman and the bicycle helmets in Seattle. Bicycles were becoming a more and more popular mode of transportation in the 1970s and 1980s. This was in a period known as the bike boom that resulted from the environmentalist views of baby boomers who rode bikes to protest the increasing use of automobiles and the emissions that were produced from their gasoline. The bike boom was especially prominent in progressive cities like Seattle and San Francisco. As bicycles were being used more and more for transportation in urban environments, this also increased the amount of fatal accidents involving cars and serious head injuries. Children were using bikes more as they became popular kids' toys, and they were also often victims of many fatal bicycle accidents with cars. In 1975, there were over 1,000 deaths from bicycle accidents, with a large number of them being in children due to fatal head trauma injuries. Every year from 1989 to 1992, there were an average of 247 bicycle accident deaths from traumatic brain injury and over 140,000 head injuries among adolescents under 20 years old. This was a serious public health issue. If these cyclists had been wearing helmets, up to 184 of the deaths and 116,000 of the head injuries could have been prevented. Children and adolescents are the most vulnerable to head injury because bicycle accidents due to their brains and skulls not being fully developed. Bicycle helmets have been shown to reduce the cyclist's risk of traumatic brain injury by 88%. The primary cause of head injury from bicycle accidents was from the lack of cyclists using helmets. There were many reasons why cyclists felt reluctant to use helmets. For one, there was a social stigma around wearing helmets. They were seen as nerdy or uncool, and this was especially prominent among children and adolescents, as they were often bullied for wearing helmets. Another issue was that early bicycle helmets were made with heavy materials that were seen as uncomfortable, unattractive, and bulky. Then there was the fact that bike helmets weren't affordable. The first helmets cost around $60 and $80, which at the time in the 1980s was the price of a whole bicycle itself. Another issue was that bicycle riders blamed injuries on their own fault or the fault of others, not the fact that they were missing important protective gear. The solution to decreasing bicycle accidents with serious head injuries was to create new bicycle helmets that were effective and that appealed to the cyclists so that they would want to use them. Abraham Bergman was a doctor in Seattle who had seen too many seriously injured patients that were involved in bicycle accidents. Bergman began a campaign in Seattle in the early 1980s to motivate children to wear helmets. Young children were the main targets of the campaign because they are the most vulnerable to head injuries and would be the most likely to continue using helmets as a habit in their adulthood. In this campaign, parents had to be persuaded that helmets were needed for their children. Also, the prices of helmets had to become more affordable, and children had to accept helmets and see them as cool protective gear that could allow them to bike more freely. In addition, more bike lanes had to be made in cities that had an overwhelming bicycle population. This way, cyclists could be in safer riding environments that were less prone to accidents. Bergman worked to motivate the public to use bicycle helmets by advertising them. He worked with news crews in Washington, Alaska, Montana, and Idaho to share stories about traumatic victims from bicycle accidents. The broadcasting of interviews with seriously injured children and adults had a powerful effect in stimulating the use of helmets. Then Bergman wanted to lower the price of the helmets. He worked with a small manufacturer of mountain climbing safety gear in Seattle to arrange for the low-cost manufacturing of bicycle helmets in Taiwan that could be sold for $15 in Seattle, which at prominent superstores like Fred Meyer. He then approached Toys R Us, which was the largest toy retailer in the United States at the time. He got an agreement to promote the sale of $20 helmets with the sale of every bicycle. Another issue was that helmets needed to be made with better materials and styles so that bicyclists would be comfortable wearing them. Helmets started to be made out of EPS foam liners with polycarbonate hard plastic shells that made the helmets very protective, lightweight, sleek, and comfortable. Bergman furthered the momentum of his bicycle helmet campaign by forming a coalition of safety experts in the cycling community that conducted educational clinics with Spider-Man as the main attraction. Bergman and the coalition also taped public health service announcements with bicycle helmets with the Seattle Mariners baseball players. They even worked with McDonald's to give away free French fries when buying helmets. These cool bike helmet advertisements made helmets more popular and motivated children and adult cyclists to wear them. Bergman and his team analyzed the success of their campaign and found that at the beginning in Seattle, they had only a 3% compliance rate in wearing bicycle helmets, and by the end of the campaign, it soared to 65% compliance. The bicycle helmet safety campaign was a great success and prompted the purchase and use of helmets by cyclists nationwide without using legislation, only motivation and advertising. What needed to happen in the future was that parents motivate their children to use bicycle helmets, and that they have a profound role in preventing serious brain injury. Although Bergman's campaign didn't accomplish this, legislation needed to be placed, requiring the use of safety helmets for pedestrian transport. Starting in 1992, states began passing laws that required adolescents under the age of 14 to wear safety helmets when riding bicycles, scooters, skateboards, and rollerblades. As of now, in 2023, the current requiring age to wear safety helmets in California is 17 and under. In my opinion, I think bicycle helmets are an incredible solution to the public health problem of brain injury. I personally have been using bicycle helmets since I was a kid, and I still use them today to protect my brain while I'm riding my bicycle, and it has saved me countless times from bad injuries where I could have even scraped my face or gotten concussions or other things. I think that Abraham Bergman and his campaign were an incredible success, and I thank them for making bicycle helmets like they were today.